Welcome to yet another episode of Sports Amigos. We've navigated all over the country, touched base with a lot of friends, and just like we're getting so close to the Super Bowl, it feels fitting that tonight's guest, Brandon, is the kind of guy who's seen those bright lights and big stages. This dude has been all over, not the country, but he's been all over the world map.
Really? Yeah, he is a pro's pro. An East Coaster, now been in the central part of California for over a decade, which is crazy to think, in Fresno, California. That's a place I have about 1,000 cousins, literally, like a ton of cousins out there. And it was a cousin of mine that actually introduced me to Andrew when we were still working together in Abilene. I was looking for some guidance, for some advice on what to do in this crazy career that we've been in for a long time. And since then, we became instant friends almost. I mean, he was so nice to give me some time back then and give me some just really, really good words of wisdom. And without further ado, let's bring in a Syracuse grad, the sports director of 2 stations in Fresno, California, the great Andrew Marden. Welcome to Sports Amigos, dude.
Proud to be a Sports Amigo, guys. I'll be the Chevy Chase of the group, right? Thanks so much for the warm welcome and the intro. And maybe I'll just stop talking. You guys can keep flattering me for the next.
That would make me Martin Short for sure, and Mike would be Steve Martin for sure.
I like that. I'm a Steve Martin fan. I can get on board with that. With that 3 amigo, yeah, I can get on board with all that.
Andrew, we know we have limited time with you, so we'll get right to the beginning of your story. We would love to hear how you got into this world of sports broadcasting. Grew up on the East Coast, went to Syracuse. Can you take us to like the early days of when you started to think about in your head, sports broadcasting would be really cool to do?
Yeah, absolutely, guys. And let me preface this by saying that I love the fact that everybody that I meet in this business has a different story to how they got to this certain point. It's not like if you're a professional athlete, you get scouted. In baseball, you go through the minor leagues, somebody will discover you, you'll get your cup of coffee, potentially more, at the next level. We kind of do things ourselves. And, you bounce around from station to station, all parts of the country. My first job was in Rapid City, South Dakota, but we'll get to that to answer your specific question, Brandon. So I'm a junior in high school. I grew up in New Jersey, and I have no idea what I want to do with the rest of my life. I still don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. But I remember my dad sat me down one day and said, you know what? Let's start formulating a plan for college. And I said, okay. And he said, look, and my dad's great. I love my dad. He's got the foresight to kind of see things that, especially when I'm 16, 17 years old, I may not see. And he says to me, okay, well, you're going to go to college with a plan. You're not going as an undeclared major because that is a waste of both your time and my money. So you're going with a plan. If that plan changes, that's totally fine. And so we tried to figure out what I was good at and what I liked. And in case you guys haven't already been able to tell, I have no problem talking to people, and I like to talk a lot. So public speaking is not a fear of mine. I'm also a huge sports fan, as both of you guys are, and I'm sure most of the audience is. And so when I actually realized, and I didn't until I was a junior in high school, that sports broadcasting was an actual career, I said, you know what? Sign me up for this. So we looked at all the best schools, Syracuse being just 4 hours away from where I grew up, happened to be on my list. I applied, I got in, and the rest, as they say, is history. So I am a piece of fruit for a mascot. I am an Orangeman.
So did you go to Syracuse not necessarily thinking like seriously thinking, I want to do sports broadcasting? Were you just going there to try it? Was it one of those things? Like, were you just kind of jumping into it blind a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I did some research before I actually applied, and there are so many great names out there. Mike Tirico, Bob Costas, Marv Albert, Len Berman. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Dick Stockton, Dave Pash. I mean, look at the ESPN roster right now.
And also, any TV station in the country and most of the world. There's a Syracuse ad there.
Exactly. And so I wanted to have a little piece of that, a little piece of that alumni network, obviously a little piece of history, to be a part of, I don't want to call myself a great because I certainly have not achieved what some of those guys that I just mentioned have achieved at, both the national and international level, but just to be a part of, a broadcasting school that has so much history. And, you walk the halls of the Newhouse buildings and you see plaques and you see awards and you see names and you're just thinking, wow, I am a small part of this. But I didn't know all that at the time, of course. I did some research before I applied there. I wanted to get a complete education, which I did, but my emphasis was on sports broadcasting. And going back to the story with my dad, I ended up liking it. So I ended up, not changing it. And it's worked well for me so far. 17 years later after I graduated, I'm still fighting the good fight, just like you are, Brandon. And Mike, kudos to you for getting out, but I know you did it for a while.
That's exactly right. So you make it through college, you learn what these teachers are throwing at you, and you're starting to prepare for life after college. And you go from the East Coast, and I know Syracuse names are all over the map, but when you're on the East Coast, it feels like it can be easy to just stay out there because there are a lot of the small markets. So the market density is so great east of the Mississippi. Your route takes you a different way, and you end up out and I'll spotlight Boise. But I know you end up out in Boise, Idaho, in Bronco world, potato world, and that. What made you say this is the right choice for me to head so far west from where you grew up?
So before I got to Boise, Mike, my first job was in Rapid City, South Dakota. And I was fortunate because I actually got that opportunity about 5 weeks after I graduated back in 2003. There are a lot of people, and you both know this, that are still looking for their first job in this business because, they have a specific mindset. I graduated with people who said, you know what, I've got Syracuse on my resume. I'm not going any less than a top 50 market. That realistically doesn't happen because, you think about supply and demand. If this were the 1970s, possibly 1980s, even early 1990s, you might have your pick of the litter, but you kind of have to take an opportunity, when it comes. And so the first opportunity that came my way was in Rapid City, South Dakota. It was at KNBN, the NBC affiliate there. And I got that job because of an internship that I had when I was in college. I interned at the local NBC station in Syracuse, the number 3 sports guy there, used to work at that station, still kept in touch with his news director, put in a good word for me, and I was able to finagle my way in there for an interview and a job. But I have to say this, I've traveled a lot as, both an adult and as a kid. I'd never been to South Dakota, didn't know where Rapid City was on a map, and so I just said, you know what, I'm going to go. My parents were incredibly supportive. They helped move me out there. And I will say this, I was there for about a year and 9 months, and it's beautiful out there. I don't know if you guys have ever been to the Black Hills of South Dakota. Mount Rushmore was 20 minutes away. Custer was there. There aren't a lot of people there. The city of Rapid City is only about 60,000. There are only 2 markets in the whole state. You have Rapid City on the west and Sioux Falls on the east, and it's about a 5-hour drive in between the two. But I learned a lot there. I made some lifelong friends. But I will say this, having Syracuse on my resume probably helped me get that job. But I ended up knowing nothing when I first got there. First time I took a camera out to shoot a story, my video came back bluer than the sky. I had mic issues. I actually forgot a tape to my second shoot. I was almost in tears because my first thought was, I can't hack this. And now I'm thousands of miles away from home. But, you suck it up. And a couple of months in, I started to feel okay.
Yeah, we've all got those horror stories, forgetting the battery, forgetting your tripod, forgetting something really important, and just ultimately screwing up to the point where, you get tested mentally. Can I and do I want to do this? And you decided you did, and you go from South Dakota to Boise State. I imagine going to the state of Idaho, I should say, but to cover Boise State. What was that experience like? That must have been a level up as far as covering some things that are on national TV and stuff like that. What was Boise like for you?
So when I first got to Boise, that was in 2005. It was still that city that was kind of tucked away in the Pacific Northwest. Most people don't know this, but Boise is actually the 3rd largest city in the Pacific Northwest, behind Seattle and Portland. When I got to Boise in 2005, the Boise State football team was not as predominant as it is right now. It was basically that program that had the cute little field that was playing late night on TV. Boise State kind of blossomed and really ballooned when I was there. In 2005, that was Dan Hawkins' last season. The 2006 season, the next season was when Chris Peterson took over. That was the year they went to the Fiesta Bowl and, the Statue of Liberty play, Adrian Peterson, Oklahoma, David versus Goliath. That's when Boise State really took off. But when I was there, the program really hadn't captured the national attention. And so I was still kind of, finding my way a little bit. In 2005, I was, 20, was born in 82. So I was 23 years old, still very young. I had a couple of years of experience under my belt, but now I go to a market that has a Division I football program. When I was in South Dakota, you're covering mostly high schools. So the access is a lot different to cover high school coaches, high school athletes than it is with a Division I college that has a sports information department. But once Boise State started to get really good, and in the 3 years I was there, they were really good, you learn a little bit more about how difficult it can be to navigate the world of college athletics. But it was really cool to kind of see that rise. And I did get to cover the Fiesta Bowl. So I went to Arizona for that game. I saw them face Nevada, where they threw Tostitos Fiesta, bowl. Tostitos chips on the field after the game, because they knew if they won that game, they were headed to the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl. And it was just, so some great players in Boise State history. I was there before Kellen Moore got there, but guys like Jared Zabransky, Darren College, Ian Johnson. It seemed like he was a college player for about 8 years, but his proposal, after the Fiesta Bowl, that was a really, really cool time to obviously be covering sports in Boise, Idaho. And just from a standpoint of living there, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Idaho before. It's beautiful there. You can golf and ski in the same day. The mountains are always snow-capped, beautiful views. I could absolutely see myself retiring there one day. Great place to raise a family.
In Boise, this whole Fiesta Bowl setting, I want to use that to sort of springboard into the transition to Fresno. But you get to Boise, you really get your first taste of what it's like to cover big boy football, the FCS, the FBS, these the Power 5 conferences, these Cinderella opportunities. How much do you feel you learned when as you're getting ready, as you're in Boise, and then as you're transferring over to Fresno State, and that's an even bigger playing field, albeit Fresno is not necessarily known for the kind of work that you've been able to do there?
Right. Well, in terms of market size, it's a huge jump. When I was in Boise, I think it was market 122, 123, whereas Fresno is a top 60 market, just outside the top 50. So a lot more people, a lot more eyeballs on what you're doing. From a sports transition, it was pretty easy to make for me because Boise State and Fresno State were in the same conference, the WAC at the time. Both cities had a hockey program in the ECHL. They both had an arena football program, and obviously covering high school sports transition for me, starting out in South Dakota. So I was still telling the same types of stories. It's just, you can't really mess up now or mess up as much because more people are watching. There's more pressure on you. I always like to say that I don't pay attention to the ratings because, I like to think that my work ethic is going to stand on its own 2 feet. If my boss comes to me and says, hey, you know what, we want to make a change, we're going to go in a different direction, you have every right to do that. But I don't work in New York, LA, Chicago. Maybe that's in the cards one day, maybe it's not. But when you work at that level, if the ratings don't improve, they can get rid of you. Here, as long as you don't curse on the air, embarrass the station, in some way, as long as you're a hard worker and people respect what you do, you probably have job security. And so I've always just tried to keep my head down, like a horse with blinders on. I just kind of want to do my thing. And I've been able to find a niche, telling stories. I love human interest pieces. Brandon and I have talked about this a bunch too, but doing highlights is important. There are people there that want to see highlights, especially local highlights, the local colleges, local high schools, et cetera. But if you show highlights of the Minnesota Twins against the New York Yankees, obviously right now we would because of Aaron Judge, but if we're just showing random highlights that don't have a local tie-in, you're really doing a disservice to your viewers because they can get that information anywhere. And there are so many outlets out there for stories and for information. You have to give the people a product that they can't get somewhere else. That makes you relevant. And also you have to be adaptable too. When I first started out in 2003, our station had a website, but it had one page that was never updated. Now we have to post 5 to 7 stories a day. Yeah. We're on social media. It's a different world out there now.
For sure. And so you have now been at KSEE, KGPE in Fresno since 2008. You're going on 13 years out there. And
yeah,
if I'm wrong, it was 2013, you get bumped up to sports director and you take over the Bulldog Insider. And for those who don't know, have never watched Fresno television, it's, I can you also correct me if I'm wrong, the longest standing Fresno State specific show. And that's a beast. to host it, to produce it, to be a reporter on it, like you were before you were the host of it. How big of a part of your life has been the Bulldog Insider since 2008?
Well, let me first say this, Brandon. You talk about my longevity here. I think you've got more gray hairs than I do, though.
It sucks. I know. It totally sucks.
We're very similar in age. I'm a bit older than you are, but you have more gray hairs than I do.
It sucks.
The Bulldog Insider, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with that. So here's the quick backstory on that. So when I first came to the Fresno market, I came to KGPE, which is the CBS affiliate here, and I started as the weekend sports anchor. So I was the weekend sports anchor from 2008 through 2013. In 2013, and let me think for a second, the company that we were owned by was Clear Channel Broadcasting.
Right.
They were bought out by Nexstar Broadcasting, and then that same company also bought KSEE, the NBC affiliate here. So in 2013, two stations were under one umbrella. They merged us and put us in the same building, and I had an opportunity to become the sports director of both stations, now one sports department. So we have a team of three, and I oversee the other two people in the department. One of the signature broadcasts of the NBC affiliate KSEE is Bulldog Insider. They've been doing it since even before I got to the market. It started in 2006, I believe, 2005 or 2006. But I officially took over the producing and the hosting duties for that show when I became sports director. And so since 2013, it's kind of been my baby. So I've been doing it for 7 years. And it's a weekly show. We do an hour. During football season, it's an hour. But when it's not football season, it's 30 minutes, but it's year round. So we do it. I mean, we did it during the pandemic for the last, 10, 11 months when there have really been no sports going on between, Fresno State had an abbreviated football season, but there were no sports from, March until early August. Well, actually September when football camp started this year. But we do it, we do it year round. So we even do it during the summer on a normal year where there are no sports. And I pride myself and, I've got a good team that I'm working with, but, our goal is to find feature stories, because if all you do is rely on highlights, I mean, no offense to some of the niche sports at Fresno State, but we really don't want the show to be equestrian highlights, women's tennis highlights, lacrosse highlights. We'll do feature stories on those athletes, and we have, but unless they're, competing for a conference championship or they, let's say, get the number one recruit in the country, we want to do human interest pieces. And for example, I got creative and thought outside the box for this weekend. Sunday is the both conference championship games in the NFL. Davante Adams, of course, went to Fresno State. He plays for the Green Bay Packers. I reached out to Ron Antoine is his name. He was Davante Adams' position coach, his wide receivers coach, when he was at Fresno State in 2012 and 2013. And so I sat down, did a Zoom interview with him that I'm in the process of cobbling together right now to find out what Davante Adams was like before he became the Davante Adams that, all these DBs fear in the NFL. And so just getting creative and finding ways to tell stories, advancing the plot a little bit. So, we bring on analysts. We kind of have tried to turn that show into almost like an E60 type show. We want it to be, we want to have a couple of highlights, but for the most part, we want it to be fun, featurey segments, lengthy conversations, and just think outside the box. And it's nice to have a platform to be able to do that year round, because as you guys know, to try and fit a lengthy conversation into a 2.5-minute sportscast, it doesn't necessarily work. So we do have an avenue and a platform to do it. But to answer your question, Brandon, it's a lot of work, because I'm always thinking about what we can do for the next show, because I can have the best show in the entire world, but we still have to do one next week. So you can't sit there and rest on your laurels.
This is the point now where your career ultimately takes a bit of a different turn, and it expands in a way. There are a lot of athletes out there with ties to not just Fresno State, but to that region of California. I think one of the most obvious names out there is probably a guy by the name of Tom Brady. And I know you've been to a couple football games that he's been at where he's been given a couple Lombardi trophies. But what was that like for you going from, well, really more in the current text, what's it like for you covering these local names, not just in high school and at Fresno State, but now the Davante Adams, the Tom Brady's, and
right now Derek Carr, Bryson DeChambeau. I mean the Central
Paul George,
Valley,
Paul George.
I mean all sports, all over the world. I mean across the sports landscape, there are guys with Fresno or Central Valley ties
to the Olympics even.
Yeah, well, you kind of hit the jackpot with all those names that you just mentioned, because on any given night, we're talking about one or sometimes all of them. And, this area in Central California, as Brandon knows, has always been like a half Raiders, half 49ers community, because, I mean, we're literally almost halfway between the Bay Area and Los Angeles. So you've got Giants and Dodgers fans here. You've got Lakers and Warriors fans here, although a lot of the Warriors fans are definitely front runners. They didn't know a single player on the team before Steph Curry and Steve Kerr took over, and with Klay Thompson led those guys to all those championships, with, of course, the assistance of Kevin Durant. But you mentioned Tom Brady, Mike. Tom Brady's sister, Maureen Brady, actually played softball at Fresno State. She was an All-American. So there's another tie into Fresno.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah. But our company, so when Nexstar Broadcasting came in and purchased both stations in Fresno, what I really like about this company is they place an importance on local sports. They care about exactly what I'm telling you guys about. I mean, they've started this broadcast within the last year. It started in September, called News Nation, which is a WGN special. It is an unbiased news program for 3 hours every single night, because they want news to be for the center, not for the left, not for the right. If you're a fan of, Fox News or CNN, I'm not telling you what to watch or what not to watch, but if you want just the news without any bias, that's what our company is about. And they know that local sports is an area where we can win with viewers, because, again, we put forth the effort. For example, I'll give you guys another name out there. Tom Flores is most likely, fingers crossed, going to finally get in the Hall of Fame, the NFL honors the day before the Super Bowl. Tom Flores is from Sanger, California, which is 15 minutes away from Fresno. Today, I actually was in contact with Sanger's athletic director, the old high school football coach who was there for 27 years, and a couple of Tom Flores' old friends. I'm going out there next week to do a story on him that's going to air the day before the Super Bowl. In case he ends up not getting in, we want to make sure that we have that story ready to go. But everybody knows about Tom Flores as, the first Hispanic coach in NFL history, to win a Super Bowl. He's one of two men to actually win a Super Bowl as a player, an assistant coach, and as a head coach. Mike Ditka is the other one. But these are the types of stories that you can find. And if all I did was just show old Raiders highlights or regurgitate those types of stories, I'm not going the extra mile. And so for me to actually go to his old high school where the stadium is named after him, where he was a three-sport athlete, show the memorabilia, the trophies, and the display cases and all that, those are the types of stories we look for. Our company recognizes that, and they actually send us to events to do those types of stories for the entire company.
I want to sort of zoom out just a little bit from the trophies and the people to the actual events, to the Super Bowls, the Olympics. And I'd like you to rewind a little bit and take us back to the first Super Bowl you covered, the first Olympics that you covered, and what it was like walking onto that stage and into that arena that so many young journalists, Brandon and myself included, would probably just be awestruck and wide-eyed walking in there for the first time. What was that like for you? How did you process it? And how did you, work through to provide a product in those environments?
All great questions. I'll say this. I definitely had that wide-eyed feeling in the beginning, because at first I thought I didn't deserve to be there. I'm a guy who's working in Fresno, California. I'm sitting next to, a Tom Rinaldi or a Tim Kalishaw, a Lester Holt, and you're thinking, these are, normal human beings, but they're just on a level that I'm not at yet. Granted, I mean, the work that we do is a little bit different than the work they do. Lester Holt has, probably 100 people, to help him out, and he doesn't pick up a camera and shoot his own video. He's not doing 50 live shots, for stations a day. He probably does his thing that somebody else will edit for him, whereas we have to do all that stuff ourselves. So the timeline for me was late 2015. 2 years, I'd worked for this company, Nexstar Broadcasting, and I get called into my news director's office in November of 2015. And he tells me, we need to get you under contract for 2016. And I looked at him and I said, well, his name was Chad. I said, Chad, I'm under contract through March, because my contract was up in March of 2016. He said, yeah, that's not good enough. We need to get you under contract. And typically, you guys know this, somebody will come to you about 60 days out, maybe 90 days out. But here, we're 5 months out. And I said, well, what's the rush to get me under contract? And he has this little smirk on his face. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, something's up here. So he tells me, and I'll never forget this conversation, guys. He says, So our company's putting together a team of reporters, and they want to send you to the Super Bowl and the Olympics. And my jaw hit the ground, and I did drop an expletive that I won't repeat here. But
you found out at the same time you were going to both.
Time.
That's cool.
I found out at the same time I was going to do both, and I didn't believe him. I actually cursed at my boss, and I didn't believe him. I said, and you guys could finish that that phrase. But he was being serious, and I didn't believe him. Now, I figured at some point in my life and my career, if I stayed in this business for 20, 30 years, I figured I'd get to a Super Bowl at some point, because they move those locations around the country and they credential hundreds and thousands of people. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I'd go to an Olympics, because, that to me is, I went to Brazil, in 2016. I went to Pyeongchang, South Korea in 2018. If there was an Olympics this summer, I'm going to Tokyo as well, which is just mind-blowing to me that I would have been chosen, for the first time to go when there are so many talented people out there, but to be asked to go again as our company is growing and expanding, and they certainly have more of a, cachet of people to pick from. But obviously, they like my work ethic, and they're happy with the work that I put out there. And so if they're going to keep offering me those opportunities, I'd be silly to say no. But I'll tell you guys, the preparation, the work, it is intense. You guys know this too. Think about the most stressful day that you've ever had in this business, and then magnify it by 1,000. What's a national signing day like for you? You're awake at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you don't go to sleep until 3 o'clock in the morning because you're still on that adrenaline high. And you still don't even get all the work done because the kids that you left out, or some kid only gets 15 seconds, and his mom emails you and said, hey, how come that guy got a soundbite? This doesn't. That's kind of what it's like, except now you're doing it for, 150, stations across the country. So fantastic experiences. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but a ton of work, including the preparation. We started our preparation for Tokyo last March. So we're now over a year in for our preparation, because it didn't stop. We put it on pause for about 2 months, and then we started up again.
Take us to your first live shot of the Super Bowl, first live shot in the Olympics. Which one is more nerve-wracking?
Probably the Olympics, because I can rattle off football knowledge off the top of my head like you guys probably can. But with the Olympics, I know the big names, right? When I was in Rio in 2016, that was Michael Phelps' swan song. I may not have at the time known exactly how many medals he won, how many gold medals he won, but we've all heard of Michael Phelps. We all know about the Dream Team, right? The Barcelona team, the basketball team from 1992. People have heard of Mary Lou Retton. There are big names out there that you can always, refer back to, but they wanted us to be specific with our markets. And so, to use Fresno as an example, we had a BMX competitor from Visalia, California, named Brooke Crane. She finished 4th. Devastating for her, because she just missed, of course, medaling. We had an equestrian rider from this area who actually competed for Puerto Rico. And I still don't completely understand. I've asked her about 5 times how, if she's an American citizen and Puerto Rico is an American territory, it technically represents as a separate country. But she got to do that, and she's now she's actually a 2-time Olympian, because she's going back to Tokyo this summer. Again, fingers crossed that there is an actual Olympics. But to answer your question, Brandon, Super Bowl was easier for me because there were only 2 teams. Obviously, we all watched the game. I've been watching the Super Bowl since I was a kid, and I pay attention to the Olympics, but everyone wants to know how the big names are doing. They don't necessarily, the Shaun Whites of the world and, Lindsey Vonn, et cetera. But they may not know who the U.S. curling team is until those guys win gold, and then they're rock stars for their 15 minutes of fame. So I think we just had a guest walk past you, Brandon.
Fiance's getting milk for little man, and
I like it.
She's got the night attire.
I like it. Or she's just riveted by this conversation.
She's been asking me for like the last 5 minutes. Can I go?
Pay no attention to the person behind the screen.
The toughest part, guys, is not so much the work, because, and you both know this, having been in the business, you can always find somebody to interview. There's always somebody that you can do a story on. There's always one way that you can advance a story or find something unique. It's just, physically, can you deal with the demands that are on your time? We were doing live shots for 8 hours a day. You're standing on your feet for 8 hours a day. Maybe you get a 20-minute break here, a 30-minute break there, but you guys both know this. You don't get a regular dinner break in this business. Maybe you can run through a drive-through. Maybe you get a granola bar, or, I usually keep dried nuts in my desk drawer just to have something, some type of sustenance. But, that's the type of thing that really, that really tests you is, can you, it's almost like a workout, right? You work out for an hour. By the 50th minute, can you still do that extra rep? Can you still push through and do a solid job, even if you're exhausted mentally and physically? that's what really tests you. It's not so much the, can you do the job? Because if you know how to shoot, you know how to write, you know how to edit, you know how to talk. Somebody asks you a question, you can ad lib, you can react to it. It's just, can you do it for the 75th time in a given day? And they definitely test you. They definitely test you. It is a ton of work. But again, fantastic experience. I know that if I say no to it, somebody else will say yes, and I may never get the opportunity again. And the fact that they like me enough to ask me to do it a couple of times, I'm happy to say yes, but it is a lot of work. And after Rio, after my first Olympics, I think I slept for almost 3 straight days. I was that exhausted.
Wow. Yeah, you've done some amazing assignments. You've done some just amazing work, man, throughout the years, especially your days in Fresno with the Super Bowls and the Olympics. But I mean, that should not discount all the local stuff you've been doing over the years. And it seems like Fresno's become home for you now, home away from home, at least, being there since 2008. What is it about Fresno and the Central Valley that's kept you there so long? I mean, that's a long time to be there.
It is. And, I look at it 2 ways, and I'm sure you guys have the same viewpoint on this. Everybody looks at it like they want to climb the ladder as high as they can. And if somebody came to me from ESPN, from HBO Real Sports, from NBC, hey, Mike Tirico's retiring, we want you to replace, him as our lead analyst, or something like that. I would listen to an opportunity, but I'm happy where I am because I realize that the grass isn't necessarily always greener. Like, you could be in a position where, and I know there are a lot of people out there who are out of work right now that wish that they were in a position that I am. And so I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have. To answer your question, Brandon, I work for a company that doesn't micromanage me. Not only do they give me a lot of great opportunities, but I don't have to sit in those editorial meetings where I have somebody looking over my shoulder, every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, telling me, no, we need you to put this story in your sportscast, or we need you to go cover this, or we need you to interview this athlete. I have autonomy to do things the way that I want, and I appreciate that. And there are people with a lot of experience, people that I trust that I can go to for advice, for criticism, et cetera. But on a day-to-day basis, I basically make my own schedule. As long as I'm on the air when I'm supposed to be on the air, they don't necessarily care about the content because they trust that I will do, what I need to do to get the job done. And so that is something that I appreciate very much. And it's probably the main reason why I've stuck around for so long, because, I work with people that, that have my back, basically. From my news director to my general manager, even to our corporate office, they kind of let us do our own thing, and I appreciate that. But again, I'm a human being. I am from, as you mentioned, the East Coast. I grew up, just outside of New York City, 50 miles outside of New York City. So if I had the opportunity to go there, one day, I would certainly listen, but I'm not actively looking at that. Makes sense.
For sure, man. Well, this has been a blast so far, and now we can get to the, I think this is the most fun part of the show. We do something called the lightning round.
The lightning round!
In honor of you coming on the show, knowing you have an affinity for the likes of Superman and the likes of Seinfeld,
Who doesn't? Come on.
Right? We are deeming this the Andrew Marden Festivus.
Hey! Happy Festivus, everyone!
I've done a little digging for this, so we're going to get going. Traditionally, the lightning round is 10 questions. 10 relatively quick answers, because we aren't like game shows where you have to give an answer in a certain time. We just want to have fun with it. But we did sort of blow this one up a bit. So we do some digging on our guests to see like what are their hobbies, what are their passions, and so on. So we're going to start with this. Knowing you are a Syracuse grad, and if I saw the info right, you graduated the same year that Carmelo Anthony and company won the national title, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, it's funny because there's a small part of me, a very, very, very small part of me that does not want Syracuse to ever win another title, because I can say that I graduated and was there. I actually went there because I was interning at the NBC affiliate. I was in New Orleans when they beat Kansas for the championship. There's a very small, and again, very, very, very small part of me that doesn't want them to win, because then I could say I was there for the one and only. But yes, my senior year was 2003, the year of Carmelo Anthony, the year of Hakeem Warwick and Jerry McNamara. The greatest year in Syracuse basketball history was my senior year. So okay. I lucked out there.
aside, because your favorite is One Shining Moment 2003. Mine is 1997 with the Arizona Wildcats. So, what is do you have a favorite sports memory while attending Syracuse that was not the national championship?
I do. Do you guys remember when Syracuse was in the Big East with Miami, Boston College, Virginia Tech?
Yep.
There was a guy named Mike Vick who was going by Michael Vick at the time. Triple overtime game. That was my best memory of seeing that.
Pretty cool.
Wow.
That's prime Mike Vick. Boy, was he fun to watch in college.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm only disappointed, though, guys. I missed Donovan McNabb and Marvin Harrison by like 3 years. Because the football team, the Syracuse football team has not been very good for a very long time. It's like if they make a bowl game, people get excited. When I was there, Dwight Freeney was there. And he, of course, was a tremendous lineman in the NFL for, gosh, I don't even know how many years he played for, but he moved around mostly he was with the Colts, he was with the Chargers, I think a couple of other teams in there. But he was the best football player when I was there. I just missed out on Donovan McNabb and Marvin Harrison, and I'm kind of disappointed about that. But the basketball team was great, but I did have that really cool memory of the triple overtime game against Virginia Tech.
Love it.
A favorite sports event you've covered as a professional, so after college?
That's a lot of stuff.
That is a lot of stuff. Well, that would be in 2006 when I was in Arizona for the Fiesta Bowl. Boise State against Oklahoma, which I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, greatest game in college football history. I mean, there are only a handful that would probably even make the cut. But I think that was the top, and I was there. I was in behind the end zone right after Ian Johnson, runs in the game-winning touchdown and throws the football in the stands. And we're all looking around saying, did that just happen? Did that seriously just happen? Boise State beat Oklahoma with Adrian Peterson, with Bob Stoops. And that was 2006. That was 15 years ago now. Man, I'm old.
Man, and that's one of the greatest plays in any sporting event, and one of the best upsets ever.
Well, and not only that, Brandon, they had 3 plays. So they had the hook and ladder at the end of regulation just to get to overtime. They had the halfback pass in OT, and then Chris Peterson had the guts to go for 2 after Adrian Peterson scores on the first play of overtime untouched, because he said, look, we knew if this game continued, we were not going to win. So we were going for all the marbles here, and that is when Boise State really got put on the map. And you have to credit Chris Peterson, Brian Harsin, who's now, of course, at Auburn, but you really have to credit, everybody for maintaining that success. I mean, Boise State is a perennial top 25 program now because of what happened in 2006.
Amen to that, man. Okay, moving on to the big stage that you've covered, the most obscure or niche Olympic sport that you enjoy covering. And I mean this. You've covered a lot. You've seen a lot. But what is that one sport that no Joe Schmo sports fan knows of that you're like, I am circling this on the calendar?
So when I was in Rio in 2016, I mentioned to you guys about all the live shots that I had to do for our stations across the country. I think I ended up doing 1,200 in a 3.5-week stretch. I mean, it was a lot of live shots. Like I couldn't even remember half the things, I was saying after I said them, just because, you're trying to localize it for each market. But we did have some breaks in between, because we would go maybe 5 in a row, and then we'd have like a 30-minute break, and then we'd have like 20 in a row, and then another break. We were fortunate where we were located that we were in a cluster that there were some venues that were nearby. I popped my head into handball. Handball is so much fun to watch in person. I don't know how it's scored. I still don't even know which countries I was watching, to be honest, but that was so much fun to see in person. They are so talented. And I wish I would have gotten a chance to see table tennis. You guys have seen it on TV where they literally just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Right. That would have been cool to see in person. I hope if I, end up going to Tokyo that I can see that. But handball was a lot of fun to see it in person, and I didn't expect it would be.
Well done. That's awesome.
From what I could see on your Twitter feed, the pins that you get when you go to the Olympics are a big deal, and you trade pins, you hold on to them. There's a lot of value in those for people behind the scenes. Explain that whole thing to us.
Yeah, so pin trading has been going on for over 100 years, and I knew nothing about it until I went to my first Olympics in 2016. But it's actually really popular at Disneyland, Disney World. So Brandon, I don't know if you've taken your kids there, if you plan to. That's kind of the non-Olympic realm. But the concept behind pin trading is it's a conversation starter. So everybody, at the Olympics, and to a certain extent, like they call them the cast members at Disney, they walk around with lanyards and with pins on their lanyards. And it's a good way to get to know people from other countries because, each athlete has a team pin. They might have a country pin and they do their own trading. And so it's almost like currency is probably the best way to describe it because you can walk up to somebody and say, hey, I like your pin. Oh, I like your pin. Do you want one of these? And then you just start talking to that person. Where are you from? What athlete, what country do you represent? What sport is your discipline? But I mean, we've used it to get access, to like team houses because you're supposed to be on a list. It's almost like one of those clubs, where there's a bouncer and a VIP list. You're not supposed to be in unless you're on the list of friends and family. But if somebody likes a pin that you have, they say, hey, we'll let you in for 10 minutes if you give us one of these pins. Okay, no problem. And so, that is a really cool, thing to have. And just, again, another way to get to know people from other countries. We've done stories on unique pins that we've found, and there are some that are like the hot item, the hot souvenir item that people want. We usually go in with, and we got smarter for our second Olympics in 2018 because there's a small group of us. There's a group of there were 4 of us that went to Rio from our company. There were 6 of us in 2018. And so we got smarter the second time. We went armed with our own pins instead of, having to buy them and then trade them. We actually manufactured our own. So we had our own Nexstar Broadcasting pins that said South Korea 2018 on them. People liked them. We ended up, turning it into a nice cachet of other pins. But what I did with them was when I came back to the U.S., I gave them away to friends and family and coworkers. So I kept one pin for myself from each games, the first pin that I received, which is the official NBC Olympics pin. So I have the one from Rio and the one from Pyeongchang. But I probably have, had like 200 or 300 pins, from the 2 games combined. I gave them to my coworkers, to my parents, to my friends as souvenirs because, for them, it's kind of a cool thing to say, hey, he got this when he was at the Olympics, and now I get to have a small piece of it.
So if you had to pick one pin that you gave away that was a little harder to give away, what would you say? What's one you would pick? Maybe you gave it to your parent or something.
Yeah, the Today Show pins are the most prized pins, the NBC Nightly News pins, because they don't manufacture as many of those. And so a lot of times if you want one, you might have to give up 3 or possibly 4, even 5 pins to get one back. I mean, it's kind of like trading baseball cards in the sense that, if it's something that you want, obviously it's going to be worth a little bit more because there are fewer, of them. But, media pins are usually popular. We'll trade with people from other stations, from other markets. And I mean, I don't necessarily care about having a media pin from, let's say, a station in New Orleans. I might have it briefly and then I'll swap it for something else that I might like. I usually try to get the mascot pins. You guys probably saw there was this, it was a white tiger named Suhurong in Pyeongchang. It was, what was his name? Venetius was his name. It was like a jungle cat for Rio. And those are the ones that are popular because it's the official mascot of the games. And so those are the ones that I personally like. So if I can get like 20 or 30 of those, I'll give them to my nephew. He's 8 years old. I'll give them to my brother, my parents, my girlfriend at the time. People like having that type of stuff. But to be honest, Brandon, as long as it has, something that says Olympics, people are happy with it. And again, they're all stories. Each pin has a story to tell.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. Those are awesome stories. We are going to move into the trivia portion of tonight's Festivus.
Wait. Yeah, I was going to say, we haven't done the feats of strength yet. What's going on, guys?
So I'm saving those towards the end.
Here we go.
And I went through the depths of Superman history, and we'll start. I hope that I can do
the answer. Better be Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve is my favorite Superman of all time. He made you believe that a man could fly, and it's unfortunate that he was taken from us before he had a chance to maybe reprise that role in something. I know he was on Smallville as they brought a lot of the Superman previous actors as guests on that TV show, but man, I wasn't even born yet. I was born in '82. Superman 1 came out in 1978, but that scene where he just flies up and catches Lois Lane, and everyone's like, she's like, "You've got me. Who's got you?" Just love that scene. I could watch that 50 times in a row.
That's a good scene.
He's making me want to turn on my HBO Max and watch the.
Yeah, there you go. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. You can get it for free. No need to pay for the subscription.
There you go.
All right, so we will start out. First question: who did Superman entrust a piece of kryptonite to in case he ever turned evil?
Batman.
Very good.
Nice.
Moving on, what real U.S. town boasts a Superman museum? Smallville, Mississippi, Gardner, Kansas, or Metropolis, Illinois?
Metropolis, Illinois. I've never been there. I don't necessarily want to go there, to be honest. Like, I love Superman, but I don't have the desire. I'll collect the comic books every once in a while. I've got a couple of, like bobbleheads and figures, but I don't have a desire to go to Comic-Con in San Diego. I feel like it's just a madhouse there. You'd never get in to see any of the panels. Plus, they put them all up on YouTube anyway.
Yep.
But Metropolis, Illinois, I know it's the home of Superman. They have that gigantic statue. I've seen some pictures and some videos, but I don't have a desire to go there. Does that make me weird or what?
No, I completely agree. Like, it would be kind of cool to go to a place like Comic-Con, but I don't feel like this desire that I have to be there. So I'm right there.
If I was in San Diego, Mike, when Comic-Con was going on and I could pop my head in, great. But I don't want to make a pilgrimage there just for the 2 weeks that it happens to be going on, because you've got like 100,000 people that do it. You're fighting everybody.
And it wouldn't be too hard for you to get a media pass too. So at least you wouldn't have to pay too. So
true, but you still have to wait in line to get all the interviews that you'd want. And plus, to be honest, that's something I wouldn't want a media pass, because I'd want to get autographs. I want to go there as a fan. And you guys know you can't get autographs as a media member. It's a huge no-no.
Golden rule.
No cheering in the press box, no autographs of players.
Okay, moving on. What effect does black kryptonite have on a Kryptonian?
Ooh, it depends which iteration you're talking about, because it could make him evil or it could make him the reverse of his personality.
Wow.
So
you are the real deal, Andrew.
I am a big fan. I am a big fan.
Like Superman, but he's really testing your knowledge, and you're not even batting an eye.
No, this is awesome.
I am a big fan. I'm a big fan of Superman. I am definitely a nerd in that category, and I am not ashamed to admit it.
The answer that I have, and I still give you full credit for this, you split into two separate beings, the good and evil sides. This was introduced in the show Smallville.
Well, yes, it actually, there have been so many different versions of kryptonite over the years. Gold kryptonite will take away his powers permanently. Red kryptonite will temporarily strip him of his powers. Green is the one that is the most lethal. There are a lot of different variations, but again, it all depends like which writer is getting a hold of a script, because, and you guys know this, everybody kind of takes liberties with the show. And Smallville, I watched the show. I liked the show for about 7 seasons. Once Michael Rosenbaum left as Lex Luthor, I think the show definitely took a turn, and it wasn't as good. But at the same time, the reason why people watch Smallville is not because they want to know how it ends. We know how it ends. He becomes Superman. You watch the show because you want to see what unique stories they could come up with him as a teenager. But when you've got the most powerful being, in the galaxy, what can you come up with that gives him challenges each week? Because he's never going to die. Even if his powers are weakened, he's going to get them back. It's really, I watched that show because I wanted to know what stories they were going to come up with. And some were really good.
Now you got the Lois, Clark and Lois show coming up now?
Yes, Superman and Lois. Yeah, that starts in a couple weeks now.
I'm not sure. That's what it is. Yeah, on CBS.
Now I'll try it. I hear good things about it. I don't know if I'm ultimately going to like it as much, just because again, it's a unique storyline. They've got 2 kids. Do the kids have powers? How exactly did they conceive those kids if he's Superman and she's a regular Earth woman? So hopefully they address those, but I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, you think of all the details. It was great. I saw that version of Superman in the Supergirl series, and he was good. So I think it'll be good. I think it's going to be worth checking out.
Yeah, he's good. And you know what? She was good in that role, too, as Supergirl. This is the last season for that show because she wants to try other things. And, unfortunately, when the lead actor decides that he or she wants to step away, kind of changes the direction of the show.
Okay, just in case you hear whining, it's my 2 dogs.
That's fine. What else you got for me, Mike? I like these questions.
All right. Well, now we're going to what I thought would be the harder stuff, but we'll see how you handle this stuff. I know.
Right. Okay, so I have one more before I hope we get to the hardest questions that I've chosen. But Superman's alter identity is Clark Kent. What is his middle name?
It's Joseph.
Yes. This man's got it.
I had to think for a second.
That was the longest you took, but you still got it right. Wow.
I at least got you to pause. I'm proud of that moment. Okay.
I'll even tell you this. Do you know what his grandfather's name is?
Oh, I don't.
His father's name is Jor-El. Everybody knows this. But his Earth grandfather is Jonathan Kent. His Earth father is Jonathan Kent. His Earth grandfather is Hiram Kent. Hiram.
Wow.
I know way too much.
This is
You guys are never going to invite me back. You're going to be like, "What's up with this guy?"
No,
we'll think of more stuff to ask.
I was going to say I'm going to have to dig even deeper into this stuff for the next time you're on because it's not a matter of if.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know a lot. I know about as much about Superman as I do about Seinfeld. Those are my two bites.
And that's a good segue. Is that what's coming up next?
I got 2 more questions.
Okay.
Okay. What member of the Superman family died in Crisis on Infinite Earth?
Well, there have been a lot of different versions of Crisis on Infinite Earths. So
The one on the CW?
This is the comic. This is
the comic.
The comics.
The comic books? Oh gosh. I want to say, here's the tough part, because my brain is all over the place here. In the Smallville TV show, Jonathan Kent died. In the actual CW event that Brandon's talking about, it was Stephen Amell's character, the Green Arrow, who died. I want to say Crypto, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay. The dog.
It was actually Supergirl. That was in issue number 7, explained by the writers and creative team that there were so many Superman family characters, they wanted to return to his origins of being the sole survivor of Krypton.
You got it.
Okay, well that's Supergirl. That's not Superman, so I don't want to lose full credit for that one. But that's a good one. I didn't know that.
Little victories. Okay, final Superman question before we move to Seinfeld.
Okay.
What little-known trick does Superman use to alter his appearance while not saving the world?
What little-known trick? Well, he does a lot of things. Obviously, putting on glasses is number one. He also stoops because Superman has really good posture, but Clark Kent has bad posture.
I will take that as correct because the what I was reading is he compresses his spine, but I will take stoops as a correct answer. So
for sure.
Because he wants Clark Kent to come across as a bumbling everyman who's got faults, and he wears glasses, which obviously Superman doesn't need, but he also changes his height as Clark Kent.
That's damn good, man. Damn good.
I'm still annoyed that I got the Supergirl one wrong because that's still part of the Superman family.
Hey man, play the percentages here. Play the percentages.
Oh yeah,
you got a high batting average right now.
Hey, you know what? 3 out of 10, and I'm in the Hall of Fame, right?
Heck yeah. All right, moving on to our Seinfeld quotes and trivia.
Okay.
First couple questions are trivia. What's the tagline that best describes the show?
Show about nothing.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
Come on. If I got that one wrong, I'd have to leave right now.
What is the Soup Nazi's real name on the show?
Yev Kasem.
Yes. Oh, this man knows. I love it.
So the Soup Nazi episode is my second favorite episode. My favorite episode of all time is the car dealership. Have you guys seen that one? The one where George is starving, wants to get the Twix bar out of the machine. He doesn't have enough. The dollar bill is wrinkled. He doesn't have enough change. Putty ends up breaking up with Elaine, and Jerry ends up getting, a horrible deal on a car which is yellow. I've seen the show every episode probably like 10 or 15 times, but the car dealership is my favorite episode. Soup Nazi is a very close number 2.
Oh, I love it. I haven't seen those episodes, but the way you describe it is amazing.
Oh man, Brandon, help me out here. I know you like Seinfeld.
Yeah. I mean, I'm nowhere near the level that, but I didn't know the Soup Nazi's name. But man, yeah, that's a good one too, for sure.
Okay.
That's a niche one too. I like that. That's your favorite.
Is.
It's not the most popular one. Yeah.
Did you? And I've also read too, because I've read a lot of books about Jerry Seinfeld. I've actually seen Jerry Seinfeld in person a few different times. He's come to Fresno a few times. Nice. I've seen him in Vegas. He's really, really funny in person. His stand-up act. But the guy who plays the Soup Nazi, I don't know what his name is in real life, but he's actually given interviews saying that, he got typecast because of that one line. People thought that he was a mean cuss just because, the way he delivers that line, he comes across as this angry person, but he couldn't be, any different, any farther from the truth in real life. But people, they every time they see him, no soup for you. That's all they want to get him to say.
Yep.
So
okay. Now we're moving on to the quote portion of the Seinfeld trivia. Finish this Seinfeld quote. Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie, blank.
If you believe it. And that's not Jerry, that's George.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So I meant Seinfeld is in the show. So this one is another Costanza quote. At Festivus dinner, you gather your family around and you tell them all the blank.
You tell them all the ways that they have disappointed you over the year.
Yes.
around a giant tin pole that doesn't have any tinsel because Frank Costanza finds it distracting.
Larry David had to have written that. That's so good.
Well, Curb, please tell me you guys have seen Curb.
Oh, every episode.
Yes. Yeah.
Curb is what I love about Curb is it is an extension of Seinfeld, but because it's on HBO, you can push the envelope a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so they're both great. But Curb takes it to another level.
I love it. Good. Okay, final one. Finish this Jerry Seinfeld quote. Looking at cleavage is like looking at the sun. You don't stare. It's too risky. Blank.
Ooh, I don't know.
That was a long one, too.
Yeah. I mean, my first thought was they're real and they're spectacular with the Terry Hatcher cameo, who is my favorite of Jerry's girlfriends on the show. Say it one more time, Mike. Say it one more time.
Yeah.
Looking at cleavage is like looking at the sun. You don't stare. It's too risky. Blank.
You have to look away?
Close. You get a sense of it and then you look away.
Okay.
That was hard.
That's a really hard one.
Dude, if you would have got that one, that would have been the ultimate mic, like double mic drop. That would have been so good. That.
So with those, the Seinfeld ones, I feel like I achieved the the increase in the difficulty.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, I love the show, but there are things that I didn't, if you were to ask me how many times Jerry has said hello Newman on the show, I don't think I'd be able to answer that because it's less than 30 times. Like, he actually doesn't say it that often. How many times he opens the door for Newman versus saying hello Newman. A lot of the guest stars that they've had on that show that have gone on to fame, in other movies and, TV shows and projects. I mean, there are so many Easter eggs that you can go back and, I mean, I've seen them, hundreds of times, combined. You go back and there are things you never saw.
That's amazing, man. You know your stuff. I will give you that. Before we wrap it up, this is one we use on everybody. And I like to think of it as this is us getting to know you type of question. But what is your favorite movie that you are ashamed to admit?
Yeah, guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Ooh. Does Hitch count? Because it's a romantic comedy.
Yeah, I feel like any romantic comedy would probably qualify. I think Hitch is good, and I think someone else may have said that too.
Yeah, Hitch is on my short list too.
Okay, because I really like Hitch. I'll say this, and this is probably going to be something that'll live in infamy on the internet, or be shared as a meme if I ever get to be super popular. But I really like that scene in Armageddon when the second rover appears after you think that, the whole all hope is lost. I always get goosebumps when Ben Affleck and Michael Clark Duncan show up and then they're like, all right, we can resume drilling. So I know that that's not a guilty pleasure and it's obviously a masculine movie with a lot of action, but I get goosebumps at that one scene every single time when the second rover comes.
Affleck to the rescue, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not even the biggest Ben Affleck fan in the world. Like, there are some things he's done that I think he's fantastic. Obviously, Good Will Hunting, is at the top of that list. But there are other things like, to be honest, I didn't think he was going to make a good Batman. He proved me wrong. I thought he was really good as Batman.
I like him as Batman. Yeah.
And the movie I didn't think was very good, but I thought he was good.
Yeah, and he's not done yet. He'll be in the Flash movie. The reports are saying, and maybe even something else. So
he got super excited to come back for the Snyder Cut reshoots.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you that real quick before we let you go, because I know you got to go. Justice League, the recent Superman stuff, the recent things that Superman has been in, the Snyder era. What have you thought of the Superman stuff in the Snyder era?
I've been very disappointed. I have been very, very disappointed. I think that for some reason, Marvel gets it right on the silver screen, but DC gets it right on the TV shows. I think The Flash is well done. I watched several seasons of Arrow, Smallville. While it's, a little bit cheesy, I enjoyed that show. But for some reason, I don't think can get it right on a massive scale. And I know part of it is you've got these iconic characters, right? If you want to make a movie about Iron Man, nobody knows about Iron Man. The diehards will know, but the general fan knows who Superman is. Rocketed from, the planet Krypton as a baby, grew up in Kansas to Jonathan and Martha Kent. Everybody knows Superman's story. They know Batman's story and Wonder Woman's story to a certain extent. So it's difficult to write to those characters just because you've got the most powerful being in Superman's case, the most powerful being in the galaxy. How do you find a foil for him? And so I've just been disappointed. And I will say this, I have enjoyed the Marvel movies, but I didn't really like that they had to use time travel to wrap up the storyline with the Infinity War saga. It's like, look, you painted yourself in a corner. I know that they really didn't have anything else that they could do, but you have this huge build-up. Thanos with the snap was a perfect way to end the first part. And then it's, all right, we'll go back in time and find the stones, and then we'll just solve everything. I was disappointed with that ending, but, those movies are great, too.
Right, yeah. The most epic finale, the final battle of all time. Hey, buddy, we really appreciate your time tonight. We know that you're working on a night, which was actually a night off, which goes to show your work ethic coming in on your night off.
It's all good, and you guys both know how it goes. What we do is not a 9-to-5 job. You have to really be passionate about what you do. There's always something that seems to, garner your attention or something you need to do. So no big deal. The nice thing about this particular, time window for us is I'm in between shows. So it's all good. Happy to do it. I wish I would have gotten them all right on all those questions, but happy to talk sports, Seinfeld, Superman with you guys anytime. And here's one more quirky thing about me. I also play Ultimate Frisbee. I'm a big Ultimate Frisbee.
Yeah.
I've been playing since I was 18 years old.
I've seen that on social media. We'll have to get the next time you're on. We'll have to talk some Ultimate because Mike is a big Ultimate guy.
That was really? my world. That was my world in college, man.
Yeah. I started. I'll give you the brief synopsis on me, and I want to hear your story too. So I started when I was a high school senior. Our gym class, it was just not part of like an elective, but just a couple of days. There were a few guys that were throwing around a frisbee, and I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. And they're like, yeah, we're putting together a club team. Do you want to join? And I didn't know anything about the sport, but I've always been, pretty athletic, and I could run pretty fast. I'm in decent shape for long distance. So they're like, yeah, you want to try it? And I was like, okay. And I liked it. So when I was at Syracuse, there was a club team at Syracuse called Scooby Doom. That was the name of our team, a mixture of Scooby-Doo and Dr. Doom. And I played for my entire college career.
So cool.
We went to a couple of regionals, didn't really do that well because there were only a few guys on our team that were actually decent. But it was so much fun that I still play recreationally. There's a group that meets weekly out here, and I'm a part of it. My bosses have said, kind of like, you guys will appreciate this. They're like, with anything else in life, do it. Just be careful. It's like with Anchorman, no touching the hair or face. Don't get injured from
Exactly.
You got to look presentable on TV.
You could take a bow out there. Yeah, you could take some. Yeah, you could take a shot if
but Mike, I did play on the Syracuse club team. So what's your story?
So I did not play until my sophomore year of college, and it was just basically like a college church group that I started going to. They said, hey, we play. A couple dudes who were part of it and part of the church group said, hey, we play Fridays 3:00, and it was just a group of them getting together. And so I went out, started playing, and a couple of months later they said, hey, we play intramurals, we have a mixed team, do you want to join? I thought, I get to run around and it's intramurals, yeah, it sounds great. And we ended up winning the men's league my senior year, so that's like my one claim to ultimate fame. We played that year, and then when I moved out to Abilene, Abilene Christian has a club team, and I knew some of the kids who were on the team. They said, hey, come and practice with us because we need bodies. And that's where I started to learn, like, okay, this is the flick, this is how you play the zone, this is the different techniques in that within the game. And I actually played, like, we moved up to Oregon. I really wanted to do a story on University of Oregon women's team because they had just won, basically their version of the NCAA title. And so I really wanted to. It didn't come together. But then after we moved down here, summer before last, I played City Mixed League with my nephew, who he could only play like half the season. But we played, and it was just something else for me to do on a Wednesday night.
To circle back to the Olympics, baseball and softball are on the docket again here in Tokyo. They had not been Olympic sports since 2008. And the reason, again, for that is there just aren't enough countries. If you're only going to have 6 countries be represented, well, then all you have to do is be, in the top 3. So if you finish, in 4th place, 5th place, 6th place, you don't get a medal, but you still finish in the top 6 of the world, and it's, to me, if you don't have at least 20 or 30 countries, participating, you might be able to allocate those resources someplace else. So it's great for the athletes that get a chance to actually compete in those sports, but I don't see it right now. But then again, you never know. Breakdancing is apparently coming to Paris in 2024. So maybe Ultimate Frisbee is, not too far after.
it's crazy to see what they're actually bringing to the Olympics. But yeah, I think you're right. They just didn't have the countries represented in baseball and softball, and it sounds like they have started to pick that up. Where I don't know, like ballpark 20 or something now.
Right. Andrew, dude, I know you haven't eaten dinner tonight, so dude, we will let you go. Thank you so much. You were already a sports amigo of mine before, and now you're a extra certified sports amigo for Mike and myself. Quick plug for you, yourcentralvalley.com, at Andrew Marden on Twitter. One of the best in the business, man. You're such a great guy, and I am honored to have known you for quite some time now, for about 8 years now, and just pumped for you to everything you're doing, everything you've done in your career. Just best of health, best, just all the best in Fresno. Just keep doing what you're doing, man. We really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are safe from COVID as well, too. And when you do what you like to do, the days don't feel as long, because even when it's a stressful day, you can still look back on it and say, you know what? Yes, I worked about, 500 hours, on Olympic coverage, but I got to go to the Olympics, and that's something that I never thought that I would be able to do, in my wildest dreams. I mean, even doing this right now, I'm sure you guys know plenty of people that got out of the business for various reasons. Mike, you got out of the business as well, too. And I'm sure there are days when you think, you know what, maybe I should have stuck with it. Maybe I didn't. It's not all, roses and dewy meadows, but, at the end of the day, the good days outnumber the bad days. So I'm happy to do it. Thank you guys for the kudos. Always happy to talk sports, Seinfeld, Superman, Ultimate Frisbee anytime. So if you guys want to have me back, I'm happy to do it.
Let's do it sometime. Andrew, we usually end with a cheers and a beverage, but since you're at work, we will.
I'll tell you what. How about this? I'll hold up a mask in honor of COVID.
We'll do a fit. Yeah, you got your cup, Mike. I'll do a fist bump. I got my water bottle. Social distance. We love you, buddy. Thank you for the time.
My pleasure. Good talking to you guys. Have a good one.
Man, Andrew is awesome. That was a lot of fun. And Mike, that was our 10th episode, and that's going to wrap up season 1 of Sports Amigos. Can you believe it?
It's hard to believe that it's been, that many episodes in such short a time. Recapping with friends, it's gone in an instant. Jazz hands, gone in an instant, dude.
Mic. Can you hear that? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I can't believe we're 10 episodes in, but the good news is we're going to keep going. We'll get season 2 going right away. I mean, I don't want to stop if you don't want to stop.
No, I want to keep this thing going. I do want to ask, like, we have a couple people in mind who we've pretty much locked down. Any teasers for the start of season 2?
We have a new intro that we will
debut
for sure in season 2. We've gathered some clips from some of our Sports Amigos guests and some more of our family going to be in the new intro. Keeping the song, if you're down with that. I think that I think we're gonna keep that for a good while until I get Julian jamming with me or something and get him playing something. But dude, I love you. This is so fun to do. This has been the best excuse for us to keep in touch from afar. You in Arizona, me in New Mexico. I think it was overdue for us to find something like this to just be talking every week. Because gosh, man, you're my brother, and we haven't seen each other in person in years, and this is the whole reason to do it, is just to be spending more time with you and hanging out with you, and also to catch up with our sports amigos around the country, man. It's been a blast.
We don't get a chance to catch up with those people that we've crossed paths with enough, and they all hold a special meaning in our lives and special memories to us. We love them. We value our friendships in that with them, and it's fun to share their stories and give them a chance to impart a little bit of wisdom.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, that's season 1 wrapped up. Season 2 coming up soon. We will keep you posted on Twitter and our social medias. Until then, be safe, be healthy. Mike, I love you. Give my best to Carrie and the girls, and we'll see you soon.
Sounds good, buddy. Love you too. Take care in 2021.